Hello you guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jess and today we're talking about our October reading wrap up and our November TBR. I'm going to keep these together this time. Last time I tried to separate them and do something a little bit different, but I don't know that it worked the best for me, which I think some of you guys saw in the comments. I actually had full intentions of reading a couple of the books and then a couple of the others were a lot shorter, so I was like, I'll give it a shot, but I had a really weird month in October. Like there was just so much that was happening. I also did some traveling and just like a bunch of other things. So I didn't get to nearly as many books as I normally do. And it is what it is. Like sometimes at the end of the day, reading is a hobby. So sometimes you can do way more of it. Sometimes you can't do nearly enough. And that's just what happens. But before we get into it, if you guys are not already subscribed, please consider subscribing. It really helps out my channel. I'm trying to grow my channel in 2025 and your subscription would really mean a lot. And I would also love for you guys to comment down below what your favorite book that you read in October was, or if you didn't read any of your favorites, what your favorite book of all time is, because I'm always looking for new recommendations. So just to get into it, I did not read any of the books that were on my TBR actually. I wanted to read a couple, like I said, and I still have them on my Kindle, but I just didn't get around to the ones that I selected randomly. I think that the exercise was actually really good, and if you guys didn't see it, I'll put it up. I don't remember which side it is, but I'll put it up here. I think it was really interesting for me to try that out, but at the same time, I feel like the downside to it was that I found so many books that I just like haven't selected in the past because they're not top of mind, and at some point I was clearly interested in them, but maybe I just didn't do enough research. So honestly, I might even use that tactic to clean out my TBR and my Goodreads because it's getting very full. And I think that again, like as people recommend things to me, I quickly add it into my TBR, but then it's not like a real TBR. So very, very interesting. But we did read 2 books, which again is so short, or like such a small list in comparison to what I normally read, but it is where we're at. So the first one that I read was Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. I read this one because I had just read the first 2 books in this interconnected series type thing, and I was in a big reading slump in October. Like I just like could not pick up a book. I was not interested in reading. So like, again, don't know what exactly was going on, but I finally picked up Just for the Summer. Even that I really enjoyed, but it just like took me a second to read it and get into it. I did end up reading it 5 stars though. Basically, this one again is the interconnected series of like Part of Your World and what's the other one called? Yours Truly. I think my favorite out of all of them might have been Yours Truly, honestly, but this one basically is about our main character, and she has this curse of every time she dates someone, they break up, and then that person goes on to meet their love of their life and they like go off and get married. There's a guy who has the exact same situation, and so the book opens up with a "Am I the Asshole" thread on Reddit, and it basically is just like someone else who has the exact same experience, and so she's like, oh my god, should I like DM him? And she does, and it sort of just like takes off from there. I did feel like this one was like a little insta-lovey in the sense that their whole goal was to date so that they could then break their own curse. Because of that, it was obviously insta-lovey because they immediately go into dating and they have to like be very seriously dating for this curse in their heads to be broken. But at the same time, I did feel like the characters were likable enough. I feel like it was like real enough for like what the situation was. Obviously, the actual situation was not real, but there was a lot of like real elements to it. Like the main character and her relationship with her mother, for example, was very, very real. And I really enjoyed those bits and pieces of it, even though the rest of the story is not something that you would actually experience in real life. So that's why I gave this one a 5 star. And I was very excited about this one as a whole. And honestly, the entire series was so good. I really enjoyed it. So I highly recommend checking it out if you haven't already. I feel like I'm like way behind on not reading this way before when everyone else was reading it, but it's so good. And I am so happy that I chose to try out Abby Jimenez's writing because I know she has some other books, and now I can read her backlog, which is really exciting because now I have more books to read. I didn't even realize that I actually read 2 books that were both the last and like the third in an interconnected series, which is very funny. But the next book that I read was Still See You Everywhere by Frankie Elkin. This one again is also an interconnected book. It's the third in a series, and basically Frankie Elkin, she's our main character. She's a person who doesn't really like live anywhere. She kind of just like goes from place to place, and she is interested in cold cases. So she investigates cold cases typically within like the communities that are minorities. So like depending on the area, but the very first book has to do with a Haitian community, and this book had to do with a Hawaiian community. So essentially what this one is about is there is a serial killer. She was nicknamed the Beautiful Butcher, I believe, and she is on death row. She's about to be executed, and the last thing that she wants is to find her sister. She's Hawaiian, her sister is Hawaiian, and so she basically contacts Frankie and is like, hey, I know I'm a bad person, but also can you please find my sister? I just want to say bye to her before I'm executed. And so Frankie is sent off to this remote island in Hawaii because there is a development of like a hotel development happening, and she's going there to investigate because basically at some point it was discovered that maybe her sister was there. So goes off on a complete like crazy, like mind-blowing, honestly. It was so good. The detail and like what happened in the book, and like it gets like a little gruesome, but also because it's a book, it doesn't feel as intense as like maybe a movie. And I just loved every second of it, honestly. This is the one that took me so long to read. I think I started reading this from October 8th to October 28th. And honestly, it had nothing to do with the book. It was all my fault. This is the book that I was reading when I went to like a bachelorette and things like that. So it was just like really hard to get back into it. And once you like pause for a day or two, it's hard to come back to a book. But I think that this book was so good. I did give it 4 stars. I think that like, I honestly don't know if the first or the second was my favorite out of this like interconnected series, but I really liked this one a lot. And I think that if I read it a little bit faster, maybe I would have given it 5 stars, but it was all on me. It was not the book's fault by any means. And I highly recommend checking out this series as well. It's by Lisa Gardner. So yeah, really liked it a lot. So that was obviously short and sweet on what we read, which usually these types of videos go a lot longer for me. But the next thing that I wanted to talk about was our TBR. And honestly, I'm actually very excited for this TBR because I'm finally going to dig into The Naturals. The Naturals is basically a series of books that have to do with these teenagers who are called naturals. And what that basically means is they all have these like natural abilities that are not quite supernatural, but like maybe just like more honed in than your average person. So like maybe someone's really good at understanding facial expressions, and so then they can like know what you're actually feeling, or someone can deduce whether or not you're lying or whatever it may be. So not quite supernatural, but like almost supernatural because of how good they are at reading faces and whatever. So basically it's kind of like, I keep calling it CSI, but I mean Criminal Minds. It's kind of like Criminal Minds, but if they were teenagers. So essentially the FBI has this program and they bring on these teenagers to come and help the FBI with their investigations, specifically with cold cases, but also with like serial killers. So it's actually like very interesting and like mind-bending, similar to if you liked Criminal Minds, you would probably like this series of books. But it is also YA, so this is like a love triangle is involved, and you know, it's a lot faster paced, so all of the things that you get with YA, which is really fun. So I'm very excited to dig into those because I have been dying to read these books, and there's 4 of them plus a novella. So I think that's going to take up a lot of my time in October, honestly. But then the other one that I have to read is called The Wedding People, and I actually have no idea what this one is about. It's by Alison S. Bach. Let's read it really fast. A propulsive and uncommonly wise novel about one unexpected wedding guest and the surprising people who help us start anew. It's a beautiful day in Newport, Rhode Island, when Phoebe Stone arrives at the Grand Cornwall wearing a green dress and gold heels, not a bag in sight, alone. She's immediately mistaken by everyone in the lobby for one of the wedding people, but she's actually the only guest at the Cornwall who isn't here for the big event. Phoebe is here because she's dreamt of coming for years. She hoped to shuck oysters and take sunset sails with her husband, only now she's here without him. Meanwhile, the bride has accounted for every detail and every possible disaster the weekend might yield, except for, well, Phoebe, which makes it that much more surprising when the woman can't stop confiding in each other. One of my friends read it and said that she cried. Another person that I know rated it 5 stars, so I'm very excited, and this is going to be our book club book this month, so that's going to be really exciting. And honestly, that puts me at 6 books, so I don't know what else I should add on to the TBR, but again, if you guys are reading anything that you're super excited about, please put it in the comments below because I would love to hear other recommendations in case I get through everything very quickly. I don't know that I will, but just in case, you never know. So honestly, that wraps up everything. I'm very excited for this month's reading. I think that we're gonna have a really good reading month, and just like super excited about all of the books that I'm reading. But if there are ever any recommendations that you guys have, again, please leave it in the comments below. We can share some recommendations with one another. And if there's ever any recommendations on videos you guys would like to see from me, leave that in the comments below too. Otherwise, I'm excited for one of my upcoming videos with you guys. I am going to be doing a little bit of a challenge, so stay tuned for that probably next week, I want to say, sometime next week. And other than that, I will see you guys on the next one. Bye guys.